Welcome to Key Conversations, a Making It in the Music Business podcast. My goal for this podcast is to help you learn from these conversations with both experts and working musicians and serve as a guide to assist your career in the process. I'm your host, Cheryl B. Engelhardt. Let's get going. I am super excited that we are going to be talking to Jason Spiewak, who is can I call you a friend? I think we're friends.
We're friends.
We sat on a panel a couple weeks ago at a music conference, and it was pretty much the best panel that's ever existed in the history of panels.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to let Jason tell us about himself, basically by starting off. I know you're a musician first and foremost, and you've moved into the world of managing artists and also getting really into this whole strategy of Spotify. So I'm really excited to talk to you about all that stuff. But when you look back on your career, what are like 3 highlights that you look at that got you to where you are today?
Well, first of all, thank you, Cheryl, for having me on. This is going to be a lot of fun. We did have a blast on that panel. And I think that we fundamentally altered the DNA of what a panel is at a music conference. And so for that, we can either be blamed or thanked depending upon the party that is speaking.
Agreed.
So I got into the music business as an artist. I played in a band for 5 years and toured from Canada to Florida in a 15-passenger van with 5 of my closest friends. And so that was a sincere pleasure. And I would say that the first thrill of my music business career was really having won it all. You know, I knew from an early age that I wanted to work in music. And so getting into a band and making music professionally after college was really the start of my dream. And then from there, I crossed over to the dark side in 2001, and I got an assistant job at a record company, and I had to work my way up a little bit, and was identified as a non-idiot by my employers, Daniel Glass, Michael Crumper, Christina Zafiris, Dave Laurie, Jeff Brody. Were among the executives at Artemis Records at the time. You know, the Baha Men Who Let the Dogs Out. Also credible titles like Jerusalem by Steve Earle, and the last few records that Warren Zevon released before he passed. Susan Tedeschi, some incredible stuff. And so I got to learn the business. And so that was really the second big stepping point. And then the third was arrogantly in 2004, together with some partners, including Tom Durr, who was at that time most notably an executive at Universal Records, started my own shop called Rock Ridge Music, Warner Music distributed label. I was named the president of that company and ran it for 8 years until leaving to pursue management, as you touched on in early 2013. I'm proud to say JLS Artist Management, Noble Steed Music, going to be celebrating 5 years in January. So, cool. This is the good stuff.
Great. NobleSteedMusic.com and JLS Management?
JLSMGMT.com.
JLSMGMT.com. Great. Noble Steed Music.
Yes, easier. Flows off the tongue.
Cool. I love it. And you've got like a really broad background. You've been in the corporate side of things. You've been on the label side of things. You've been on the musician side of things. So you I think that's a unique perspective, and not a lot of the people doing what you're doing have that. So that's super cool. Before we even dive in, I would love to hear your perspective as a manager on how important it is for an artist to be taking on a Spotify strategy. Just sort of combine the manager Spotify conversation quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's smart to have one. I think it would be a little too broad stroke-ish to say, everyone needs to have one. I think that if you're making pop music, or if you have an aspiration to a wide audience, Spotify is a necessary evil. The payouts are terrible, but the ability to reach a wide audience is second to none, just based upon the number of different ways that Spotify makes it possible for an independent artist to reach that audience. And so even if you have no budget and no real resources initially, there's a tremendous amount of information on the web that you can grab. And I would just say, educate yourself, make the best plan that you possibly can, and implement it.
Awesome. Cool. So we've got some people on this call, other musicians that want to pick your brain also. And everyone knows that Key Conversations podcast is not about me interviewing people, but having other musicians represent other musicians. So we've got Julia and Mihal here. And I think we'll just do one question at a time and go around, see how much time has. Maybe we'll do a laser round at the end because that's always fun.
Sweet.
So let's start with Mihal. Do you have any, I know you have questions for,
I do.
for Jason. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll start with a pretty vague one. What advice would you give me if I was trying to get people to listen to playlists that I was composing on Spotify?
Hey, Mihal, thanks for the question. I would say the first thing you should do is sync every bit of audio to pornography.
No.
To watch. Wait, what was the question? No, I'm kidding. So
great. Should I edit that one out or should I leave that in? I feel like that's quality right there.
Yeah, there you go. That's good. That's quotable. I think that that's challenging. I think that you have to first do a bit of research and figure out who is releasing comparable content on Spotify and see if there's a transparent roadmap that they've laid out for you. Oftentimes there are Reddit groups or Facebook groups or just places where this conversation is already sort of happening organically, either on a peer-to-peer basis where you can network with other people who are doing what you're doing. It's when I got into the music business, I had a misconception that you're in competition with every other artist. And especially now, it's just so not true. It's about co-opetition. Everyone is competing for a finite number of opportunities, but you'll get more opportunities if your network is wider, even if your network consists exclusively of people you're competing with.
Sure. Cool.
Cheryl, did you want to jump in on that? You got excited.
I got excited for the word that I'm trying to now remember, not co-opetition.
Yeah.
Co-opetition. I love that.
That's
Co-opetition.
I just think it's a good one. Co-opetition. It's like picture the Hunger Games.
Right. Right.
That's kind of the way it is. But, there may only be one winner, but you'd like to survive for a while out there in the wilderness.
Amazing.
My strategy would be to get shot immediately for what it's worth. If I were ever in a Hunger Games scenario, I would want to die quickly and relatively painlessly.
Lazy.
Dude, just honest. The apocalypse comes, I'm stepping in front of the bomb. I don't want to live. I want to be ash. I weigh like 230 pounds. I'll be a lot of ash.
Oh my gosh, this is getting morbid. All right, Mihal, that was a great question. Julia, do you have a question for Jason?
Not right now. I'm just listening. My Spotify followership is like 4, and I've tried to encourage people to join, and I've done a playlist, and at least I figured out how to get the check mark and combine with my Facebook and all that. So I feel like at least I set it up, but it's just I'm really just starting out right now, and I don't know how much I'll be able to grow it really because I'm such a baby artist. So I'm just here to listen.
Oh, I love that.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Uh-huh.
So, Juliet, how large is your audience outside of Spotify?
I have, well, on Reverb Nation, everybody's collected to be over 1,000. On all social media, and I guess that's including Reverb Nation followers. That's not including Naras followers, which I don't know if that's that many, but yeah, so give or take about maybe 1,000, a little over 1,000. But they're not following on Spotify.
Are you ready for an audience on Spotify? Are you proud of the material that's there for people to hear?
I am. Okay. I am.
Well, then one thing that you can do right away is a bit of just interweb marketing, taking the audience that you've aggregated on Reverb and in other places and just politely asking them to check out your stuff on Spotify, explaining that it's a different environment. And then maybe as part of your strategy, sort of upselling, for lack of better words, the playlist that you've curated, or offering music that you're not offering elsewhere on Spotify for a little while to help try and grow that audience, just so you can kickstart it a bit. Because if you're having some traction elsewhere, there's no reason why that traction can't be portable. Only a fraction of your Reverb, Facebook, etc. audience is going to be Spotify resistant. Most people are down at this point.
That's really
interesting.
Cool. Yeah,
it's a good thought.
Advice. I mean, and that's what I was hearing too, is like the question really is, there's a lot of people out there that have a record out. They've got the starts of a little bit of a mailing list. They've got their couple hundred people. They've got their 1,000 people on Reverb, and but they still consider themselves a baby band because they have these 4 followers on Spotify. So it's like, how do you get that bump up to like 100, 200, and you can start to see some traction? I think that's the question there. I think you're representing like a lot of musicians that have some movement elsewhere and are like, Spotify, I know I need to be doing stuff, but what? So I think that's starting outside of Spotify is really good advice. Like, and you guys using the pitch, like not just saying check this out, but saying, will you go follow me on Spotify? Like asking people a question, like, would you be willing to do this? And you'll probably like it. You're on my list for a reason. So,
well, also, again, I think that to be a little self-referential here, maybe some more co-opetition, people within your circle who are a little further up the ladder than you are, maybe point people to their music on Spotify and say, hey, artist X is really killing it right now. You should check out their track so-and-so. It really speaks to me, and they got a placement on this network TV show with the song, and here's maybe why. And, be a resource for people. And artist X will certainly appreciate the plug and the promo. Maybe they'll reciprocate. But even if they don't, then you're adding more value. Then you're speaking to your audience on a level that is more than self-promotional, which again, cyberpr.com is a great resource for that type of information. My friend Ariel Hyatt.
I love Ariel. She's my friend too.
She's wonderful. I mean,
she's on this podcast.
Oh, there you go. See, maybe go back and check out Ariel's podcast. I'm sure there are nuggets in there worth reviewing, and figure out a 3-dimensional approach to social media promotion that isn't so self-promotion based and incorporates shining light on others and, stirring the pot without just saying me, because people tune that stuff out pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I've sort of gotten into this idea of creating a playlist. Like I have this In the Key of Success Facebook group of people that are sort of have done my courses or have heard me speak or are on my mailing list. And I was like, oh, these are all hardworking musicians. Like this is my ideal community of people trying to get to the next level. That's always my game. So literally today we created a In the Key of Success playlist of just all these people. Everyone's been posting on the Facebook group their Spotify favorite song of themselves. And I'm like,
yes.
Yeah, and if all 500 people that are going to be on the playlist all start to follow it, that's the co-opetition.
Yeah,
right there.
That's awesome. In the Key of Success playlist. I will be checking it out.
Yeah, awesome. We literally just started, and someone even sent me a message like, "Here's my song, but if I get a placement because you're reaching out to music supervisors, like, do you want me to give you a cut off the top?" And I'm like, "What? No!" Like, sure, but no.
That'd be great.
That's not the point.
Send some dog treats.
Yeah, right. And we started this. Oh my God, OMG! My song would be perfect. PUR, perfect for a TV show, and it's all indie artists that have been on TV shows, or that sound like they should be. So again, it's pulled from this community, and it's got all the buzzwords in there. So hopefully people are searching. So we're just sort of. But it's all coming from us with other musicians. So I'm like so in love with this co-opetition word. That's going to be, love it.
Awesome.
Mihal, you have a hand up, even though it is your turn for another question.
Oh, yeah. I just like to make sure that it is my turn.
It is your turn. Go.
Here we go. Okay. So I actually have a preliminary question. I was checking you out on Spotify as we were talking, and I saw that one of the artists you're following or is following you has my exact name, and I have never seen anyone ever with my name before. Mihal Castaldo.
Okay.
From Africa, and my name is Gaelic, so that just is wildly interesting to me. But aside from that, I would also like to ask, what is your exact relationship with Spotify?
Well, just like every great relationship, it's complicated. Complicated. But Spotify, in their growth and expansion in the marketplace, have brought on really some of the best music curators and people who have been busy like cultivating and caring for and developing talent for other organizations for years.
Sure.
For example, my friend Tuma Basa was the head of indie programming at VH1 and Viacom and MTV properties for years. And now Tuma curates Rap Caviar and a whole bunch of really great.
Oh, wow.
Playlists. Yeah. And Tuma is the man. He's such a great source of information about great new music, ranging from hip hop to R&B to metal to singer-songwriter stuff. Like he knows what's happening in the marketplace. And so when I saw that Tuma got hired at Spotify, I was like, oh, well, of course he was. That makes perfect sense. And it's people like Allison Hagendorf who programs Rock This and a whole bunch of the rock and singer-songwriter playlists. It's people like that who have been stirring the pot and really been influencers on one hand and gatekeepers on another. Of course, they're at Spotify being gatekeepers and curating stuff. And then again, it's the Spotify world, I think, is about three different areas if you want to target it. And this is the approach that my company takes when we get hired to work Spotify. Is you target Spotify directly, and if you're an independent artist without any relationships there, that is by far the most challenging. Although there are some direct submission type of things, getting the blue check mark is one of the things that you can sort of check off your list and make sure that you do. Engaging with Spotify, reading their best practices, cultivating and curating your own playlists, all those things that they recommend that you do is sort of step one. Step two is identifying and targeting the third-party playlisting companies like Topsify and Filter, Song Picker. Song Picker is a really good one if you're an independent artist because they have a front-facing consumer door where if you're an artist, you can submit your music to Song Picker and they will review it and place it. If it speaks to them, if it works editorially, you don't need to have a bazillion followers and plays. They do genuinely program stuff that they dig, which is amazing and commendable. The Filter world, Filter happens to be owned by Sony Music at this point, and so there are some politics to navigate there. But there are 60,000 Filter playlists, so if you can get Filter to pay attention, chances are you're going to win there. And and then the third area is the independent third-party playlists, and there are hundreds of thousands of them. Some of these playlists are curated by artists such as yourself. Some of them are curated by people who work at Spotify who want to cultivate and curate outside of the rules that they have to follow as Spotify employees. And it's all things in between. And you might find an indie playlist with 50 followers, and you might find an indie playlist with 50,000 followers. It's really sort of a mixed bag. And the goal of all of it is to generate plays. And, a quality playlist placement, a playlist that has 50 or 60 songs, maybe 10 or 20,000 followers, you can get tens of thousands of plays off of that one quality placement. You can also end up on a playlist with 700 songs and 500,000 followers, but you get like one or two plays a week because who's going to filter through all that stuff? It's just too much. It's very tough. And most people shuffle when they listen to playlists. So, pro tip, don't worry so much about where you may land in terms of, the programming order on a playlist. As long as you're on the list, that's the thing. It's not about being track 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Cool. That's all really super helpful and good question. And Mihal, that's cool. You have someone with your name in Africa. Great.
Yeah, it's better than having the name Jason. There were 5 other Jasons on my floor freshman year at Penn State. I was like, great. It's going to be really easy to make a name for myself here at a university of 50,000 undergrads.
That's pretty crazy. I haven't met another Cheryl Engelhardt except for I was going to play on the local CBS show, morning show in Portland, Maine. And apparently they had been announcing it. Cheryl Engelhardt is going to be on tomorrow morning. And this woman found me on Facebook, and she's like 65 years old. And she was like, oh my God, all my friends are contacting me because we all watch the morning show. And her name was Cheryl Engelhardt. And they're all so excited that I was performing. And this is hilarious. I'm not a performer, but I found you. And so now she's a fan. I haven't actually met her. But she had it was a whole thing for her.
Love that. What's her middle initial?
I don't know. They were just advertising me as Cheryl Engelhardt, and yes, I normally go as Cheryl B. Engelhardt. But I don't think she didn't go as Cheryl B. Engelhardt.
I'd ask, what are the odds? But the odds are clearly 1 in 26. But we can move on.
Are they though? I mean, is it a higher odd for B versus X?
Probably.
Yeah, I'd have to get my statistics genius sister on this one. Oh, I'll get back to you on that. All right, Julia, do you have a question? I mean, you had a good conversation starter before. Do you have anything, comments, questions? Absorbing, doing the sponge thing.
Absorbing. Yeah.
It's a big world. I'm sort of not resisting Spotify. I don't have like a thing, but I kind of it was one of the millions of things on my to-do list that just kept getting, and not even on a to-do list because I only put stuff in my calendar, just never landed in my calendar as something to take on. And then when I was at the CD Baby conference in Nashville this year, I listened to a couple of things on Spotify, and I was like, okay, this isn't hard in terms of like what there is to do. It's more reaching out and doing research, which is kind of how my whole life as an indie artist is. I'm researching who do I need to pitch to and what do they need and what do I have that's appropriate for that person. Same thing with music supervisors, same thing with bookers and promoters. So it was kind of like, oh, I know how to do this. I don't love doing this, but once I sort of wrapped my head around what that process was, it's a little less daunting, but I get that it's a whole thing. So
it really is.
From a manager standpoint, this is a question I hear a lot, and I don't have any experience with managers. It's one of the few team members I've never had. And I feel like the answer is always really consistent, but if there's an answer beyond when you're making enough money to pay a manager and to manage your stuff, what's a good time for an indie artist to actually look for someone like you? Or is that's not really a conversation for indie artists, or what?
It's a good one. And it's one that I relate to. I, after my band folded as an assistant at a record company, I put out an independent solo record to cater, honestly, both to my own ego and to the humble gathering of fans that I had that were still interested in the music that I was writing after leaving the band. And so put out a record, played some shows locally in New York, tried to get the attention of people like, whoever was managing Ben Folds at the time. And really, it's not, of course, nobody got back to me, even with a bit of an industry card to play and using a record company email address. And so it's a noble pursuit. And, the financial piece of it is a really good pointer because most managers work on commission. I will every now and then make an exception and work for a fee if I believe that there's like really good work to be done and really great music being made. So it just, the financial answer to that question is the best one. But the other thing is you got to ask yourself, what is there to manage? Everyone says they don't have enough hours in the day and like all of that stuff. And if the workload is unmanageable for you because of your day job or because of your other obligations, or you've procreated yourself into prison like I have 2 kids and I love them, but they take up a lot of time, then if you had a manager helping you with that stuff, with all of the stuff, is it really just that you're strapped for time, or is that there's too much opportunity and not enough ability to follow up, and you really need someone who knows how to parlay what you have into something greater so that they can get you paid and justify their existence in your life.
I love it. Procreate into prison.
Yeah, it's a great one though. It's honest. And every single one of my friends who didn't have kids, and then I spoke to them and then they had kids, they all say that I was one of the few who was willing to be unblinkingly and brutally honest with them about how completely miserable they were going to be for the first 6 to 18 months of that child's life. No matter how much you love them, it's just exhausting.
Yeah. And we go there, the honest. Well, We said a half an hour. So in this last minute of all of the things that knowing that you're talking to musicians that are sort of hit a plateau or at a point where they're trying to grow, what's like the biggest nugget that we haven't touched on that you wanted to, regurgitate?
Two things. One, I'm a songwriter. I've been writing music my whole life. Only really became good at it within the last 5 or 6 years because of a songwriting group that forced me to write a song a week. And I've been writing a song a week since November of 2011.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was great. First 5 or 6 weeks, I had my confident bag of tricks and I was doing what I do and it was cool. And then I hit a wall hard and wrote terrible, awful, unlistenable garbage for like 6 months.
Great.
And then I found my voice as a writer. And it's through that process, you really figure it out. And I would say that my first bit of quick and dirty advice to every artist out there is always be writing. Always be writing new material and don't box yourself in. Whatever it is, be open throughout the creative process, be open throughout the editing process, always edit. It's almost never right the first time. It can always be better. And, just stay creative because creativity is the thing. Creativity is the thing that will push you forward. And the worst thing that can happen to someone who doesn't understand that is massive success, because then you have huge success and you're reined in by your success and everyone wants you to replicate that success. Disaster. So that's a good one. I had the privilege of working with Rachel Platten early in her career, and I knew that if she had an opportunity like she had with Fight Song, that she would continue to win because she worked really, really hard, even when, relatively speaking, she was losing and nobody cared. So that's a quality of an artist who's going to really make it when they get their shot. And the second thing is always be learning stuff. Like I get to speak to you, Cheryl, and answer these questions and be a bit of a blowhard because I've learned a bunch, but I'm always learning. I'm always looking to try and listen and be curious and read stuff and learn, because even if the music business wasn't changing a mile a minute, there's always a new perspective and no one person knows more than all people. And so you have to rely on the collective knowledge of humanity if you ever want to do things like, repair your car or screw in a light bulb without electrocuting yourself, or raise 2 children, or have a 25-year career in the music business.
Yeah, totally. Amazing. Well, in the chat for the people on here, those are the 3 playlists that I personally am curating from the In the Key of Success community, which is pretty cool. And find the Facebook group In the Key of Success, and you can join there and submit your playlist, your Spotify songs, not the whole playlist. I'm not going to add your playlist to my playlist. It's dumb. Or is it dumb? It's dumb. It's dumb. Jason says it's dumb. Jason, thank you so much for being here. And we're going to have to do this again. I think we're going to have to do a follow-up call where we get way more explicit. That was not explicit enough. So.
I watched myself intentionally.
I know you did. I don't like it. I don't like it.
I kept it clean. Tune in for the next episode where I filth and flarn and filth.
Flarn. Oh my God, you used the word flarn twice. Great. Yeah. All right, you guys, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And, stay tuned for next time.
Please don't forget to rate, like, and subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and YouTube if you like this podcast. Musicians like you keep me inspired and motivated, and for doing that, I'm offering you a free 6-page guide to pitching. This guide will unlock the keys to priming your pitch, where you can get started getting a yes when you pitch anything to anyone. Grab it at inthekey.co/prime. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time on Key Conversations. The theme song on this podcast was provided by yours truly. If you're interested to find out more about my composing and songwriting projects, go to inthekey.co/Cheryl. If you're a musician looking to get some real results for your music career, then head to inthekey.co/results, where I've created a bunch of different kinds of resources just for you. Key Conversations is sponsored in part by Bandzoogle. They make it easy to build a beautiful website for your music. Their step-by-step system gets you online in minutes, and you can choose from hundreds of mobile-friendly themes and customize them with their point-and-click editor. All of the features you can imagine for a possible website are built in. So, because you're a Key Conversations podcast listener, you get a special month free trial plus 15% off if you do decide to sign up. just for you. Go to inthekey.co/make-a-site to get the offer.
Pretty sure that you're